Hello and welcome to this short video for OCR Sociology G672 Sociology of the Family AS level exam. We're looking at family diversity, section 3 of the specification, a short bit of advice. So firstly it says family diversity is a topic, and there are different types of family diversity, and it refers to single parenthood, beanpole families, reconstituted families, cultural, class, sexual diversity. So if we look at those topics, we can see that those are different types of diversity. So single parent families, beanpole, reconstituted, cultural, class, sexual. With each topic there are studies, perspectives can be applied. You can use a lot of the same evidence that you use for other questions and just apply it to these topics, and that's a real trick or a bit of advice that's very helpful for sociology in general. It's just building the confidence to feel happy about applying information to those areas. For example, single parent families, single parent are often referred to the new right, postmodernists. Okay, you can use those perspectives in there, obviously feminists as well. And beanpole families, you can refer to functionalists because there's intergenerational ties, the older generation disengaging from the economy when they reach an older age, and they can engage with the family again, and they can pass on norms and values, socialise younger children in the family. So you can bring in functionalism. You can talk about the idea of the sandwich generation, and you can bring in feminism. You can talk about how women are exploited as middle-aged women caring for the older members of the family due to gender norms. We can talk about the concern about the new right have about an ageing population, because there are the older generation, there are more of those in the younger generation, and the new right are concerned, and so they argue we should introduce policies to have an impact on family life by encouraging more community-based care rather than welfare from the state. So that is relevant to issues like bedroom tax and reduction in benefits. Reconstituted families, you've got the issue of norms and values, where there are permeable boundaries between the family of the biological father and the biological mother in separate households with new partners. So it's harder to clearly socialise children into one set of norms and values. The new right are concerned about a loss of social control and social order due to this lack of clear socialisation into one set of norms and values. Status and roles, a study by Ross, power struggles and loss of status, step siblings, and the conflict that it causes between the biological parents over who has control of the children. And you've also got the concept that the children may have a sense that they want to care for the parents and make sacrifices for the parents because of shift parenting. They may enjoy spending time in the different parents' homes, but they care for the parents. That means a change in the roles, because it's usually parents who care for children, but increasingly children care for parents. Cultural diversity can refer to ethnicity. You could refer to issues like black underclass. The new right are concerned about more African Caribbean single parent families, 12% more than other background families like white British. You've got the concern, therefore, about the norms and values in different ethnic families. And you've got the issue of difference in terms of the management of behaviour based on either command or management by negotiation, which may differ between white British middle class, who might negotiate with their children and ask them what they want to do. South Asian families may have, and African Caribbean families, more emphasis on control and commanding the child. The new right would see the commanding and controlling of children as important to ensure society keeps stable. You could refer to the idea of status and roles and the idea of traditional division of labour in some South Asian families. According to Dale et al., study shows that South Asian women work less after getting married and less after having children compared to African Caribbean women, and probably compared to white British middle class women as well. So the division of labour may be more traditional in some families, so it varies based on ethnicity. Bertud and Bishon refer to single parenthood and the issue this may affect in terms of the role of the father could be expanded upon by the postmodernists or the new right. Postmodernists might say that there's more intimacy because marriage doesn't last for life, but relationship between parents and children does. So fathers are still maintaining contact with their kids and having more intimate relationships with their children despite leaving the home. Whereas the new right are concerned that the loss of socialisation, absent role models lead to crime and deviance. Social class, I'd refer to white British middle class in terms of management by negotiation. We talk about norms and values and socialisation. The functionalists might say that the social order in society is affected by how the family passes on norms and values. This varies according to class. You could refer to division of labour. Wilmot and Young study symmetrical families, middle class families, more symmetrical division of labour, more shared conjugal roles or joint conjugal roles. Oakley says this is affected by class because working class families are still more traditional segregated conjugal roles. This will be explained by feminists as an evidence of patriarchy in the family. The new right are concerned about an underclass, which with single parenthood more common, divorce, separation, cohabitation, presenting a threat to society. That's another example of class diversity affecting family life. Sexual diversity, studied by Weeks, same-sex families, more egalitarian. Postmodernists might argue that families are increasingly based on choice. In terms of sexuality, people are no longer restricted by sexual identity and duty and tradition, and they can increasingly make individual preferences families of choice based on voluntary preference. We also talk about how sexual diversity can affect the division of labour. In the Weeks case, more egalitarian. Lesbian families might be superior to the nuclear family according to Calhoun, a radical feminist who says that lesbians are outlaws. Lesbian families are labelled as bad, but they might actually be better because they avoid patriarchy. Greer would support this point. She would say that men exploit women as wives, as mothers and daughters. So she advocates matrilocal families, but some radical feminists advocate lesbian separatism, which means women living away from men and having a relationship with other women to avoid patriarchy. You could also bring in the idea of adoption, like Elton John and David Furness adopted a child, and the idea of families of choice based around freedom from tradition. According to Giddens, postmodernists, part of pure relationships, where people are trying to mutually satisfy each other's needs. If that doesn't work, they move on. So it might be more flexible. And the new right are concerned that same-sex families are part of a threat to the moral fabric of society because they might include more promiscuous behaviour and might teach their children to grow up gay. Postmodernists would argue that this is a stereotype and it ignores the fact that in reality children are born with a sexual identity and they can choose from a range of influences, and that the evidence shows that children in a gay family will not necessarily grow up gay. You could also refer to intimate relationships, and you could use Giddens' point here that intimate relationships are more based on freedom, and that sexuality and the freedom of sexuality has opened up the issue rather than being restricted by tradition. In terms of the views on this area, you've got two main views. You've got the postmodernists and the new right. I've talked about them a lot. And you could get a 33 on one of these views. Now, if you get a 33 on postmodernists, it might say postmodernist, but in the question it might say diversity, which means difference and variation in terms of structures, types, division of labour, nature of intimate and power relationships. But the postmodernists would disagree with the concept of diversity. They would say there's only one type of family that should be considered acceptable, which is the nuclear family. So because they focus on the nuclear family, any other type of family is inferior and morally bad and wrong. So they would refer to family life being in decline. So you could get questions saying the name of perspectives, but you might get a question that's using the keywords of diversity or the keyword decline, in which case you need to identify which is the correct view, start with that view, refer to all the other perspectives in your answer for family diversity, if it's a 33 mark, to evaluate the view in the question, whether it's that one, or this keyword, or this keyword, to go with the perspective. So refer to functionalists, Marxists, feminists, in addition to the view that's not in the question. Okay, so if you've got new right, you've got to refer to postmodernists, functionalists, Marxists, and feminists. Okay, if it's postmodernists, you've got to refer to new right, functionalists, Marxists, feminists. And you've got to refer what they say back to the question. You can't just talk about what they say, which is different from the view of the question. That will get you some marks for knowledge, but you're not really showing knowledge about the question. So try and refer back to the question, what would Marxists say about the new right view of the family? Hope this has been helpful. Email daniel_butcher@hotmail.co.uk.